As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road, let's camera action, I'm ready to go.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH-LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio. Today's guest host is Tom Thurstin.
Thanks a lot, Harry. I'm with the Gilder Lehrman Center for the Study of Slavery, Resistance, and Abolition at Yale University, where I'm the Director of Education and Public Outreach. And I'll have to say that of all the kind of aspects of my work that I enjoy the most, it's working with this group of student activists here in New Haven, Students for Educational Justice. I have two members of the group here in the studio with Rashonda McCollum, who's the Executive Director of SEJ, and we're hoping that Benny Msumbo, who is currently still a member, right? Yeah, still a member, but is in college at Boston College, so congratulations for that. But first, I'd like to have our SEJ members introduce themselves. Stephanie, can I start with you?
Yeah, my name is Stephanie. I'm 16 years old, and I'm a junior at MBA, which is a magnet high school in New Haven, and I've been with this organization for about a year now.
Oh, thanks a lot. That's Metropolitan Business Academy, which is a fantastic school. I really am impressed with them. And Saeed.
My name is Saeed. I'm currently an intern at SEJ. I've been with SEJ for like 8 months or something. I'm a sophomore at Career. About it.
Yeah. So let me start with you then, Saeed. What was it that attracted you to the organization?
So like in the summer, I was doing a program, like arts-based program in New Haven, and I had a couple friends in there who, right after the break, like SEJ had a break in the summer, so right after the break, they were starting to go to the meetings, and once I heard them mention, oh, they were part of like a nonprofit, and I got intrigued. I started bombarding them with like all these questions because I wanted to join and stuff. And then like they took me to one of the meetings, and I just stuck. I was at that intensive, and it just stuck.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. So right from the start, you were saying this is something I want to do.
Yeah, for sure.
How about you, Stephanie?
Well, I found out about SCJ at the club fair that we have at my school yearly. And at the booth, there was our old executive director and a friend of mine who was a senior at my school. And for the first time in forever, I finally had time to do something after school. And since I was friends with the senior, I decided to join. And ever since I've joined, I've always enjoyed my time there. And I loved going.
Oh, that's fantastic. So Stephanie, could you say a little about what the mission of Students for Educational Justice is? Like what is it that this group kind of wants to accomplish? Like I said, it's an activist group as much as anything else.
Well, the definition is kind of complex, but if I were to put it in shorter terms, I would say that we're an organization that fights for the youth in the education system, especially youth of color and their rights.
Okay, Saeed, do you want to add some?
Sure. So I remember, like, the official definition is like SEJ cultivates young BIPOC, like, I think self-pride, and also drives for racial justice through the educational system by youth-led organizing.
Right, and BIPOC
is Black, Indigenous, people of color.
All right. I think maybe what people know the organization, at least in my circles, the best for is is your work to get Public Act 1912 passed. Stephanie, do you want to let us know? First of all, what is this act that you've been working on?
Well, Public Act 1912, which was used to be known as HB 7082, which used to be known as HB 7082 and HB 7083, is the study of African American studies and Latinx Puerto Rican studies. So, what this act is, by 2021 or 2023, every Connecticut school will be required to put this course as an elective in all Connecticut high schools. And what it is the history of African Americans and the history of Hispanics.
Right.
But what SEJ wants is a little bit more than just that. We don't just want it to be socially bound to just African Americans or Hispanics. We want it to be the real history and the real culture deep down of America. We want to make sure that every voice is heard and all the history of how the oppression was made. We wanted the history of racism.
Right. That seems, I mean, really important. And I know just from talking to people in the community who are like helping to implement this, is that just having it as an elective course, like in your senior year, is like not enough. I mean, this really should be a K-12 enterprise. Saeed,
Yeah.
what did the organization kind of actually? What were they doing? What role did you play in getting this through the legislature?
So like in terms of me, I joined right after the whole like bill was just passed. So it was like a moment for SCJ where like it was kind of follow through with like what we had done with the bill. So like I was a part of the research team that we had, or like that we're still have. I'm still a part of it. To kind of get the curriculum, and then I also went to a conference in New York with Stephanie to kind of learn more about like, you know, what can we implement into the curriculum of the 1912.
So, Stephanie, could you say a little more about this New York conference? Like, who was there, and just specifically, what were they? I mean, this has been done in other states.
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah.
Well, my memory's a little hazy because I think this happened like in October, November, and
September, I think.
I'm not fond with my memory skills.
I understand.
But
I'm gonna check and see. Benny, are you on the line? I guess she isn't. So go on. I'm sorry.
But I remember it was Saeed, me, and Chin, who is one of our
The
operations director. Yes, and I think it was at NYC, and it was with one of their group places and works. So there was like a lot of people from other organizations, like youth-led organizations, BIPOC-led organizations, nonprofit organizations. I even remember an organization from California.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
It was amazing. But basically it was just like a big workshop of all of us talking, discussing what our work is, what we're fighting for, or discussing other people's work and what they're fighting for, and seeing how we can help as a fellow organizer.
You know, I don't need to tell you guys this, but you know, like young people have always been kind of at the forefront of movements for social change throughout our entire history. But I have to say, you know, watching this kind of growth of like young, like high school age activists, just in, it seems like the last, you know, 5 years or so, has really been impressive to me. Do you guys, I mean, do you have a sense of why is it that there seems to be such a renewed activism on the part of young people?
I would say because it really affects young people the most. Like a lot of the thinking that goes behind like young people is that, you know, it's gonna affect us and not like these like 70-year-olds who aren't even gonna live to see like these things that are happening in our society.
And what sort of things are you
Like,
specifically thinking about?
First thing that pops to my mind is climate change.
Sure.
Like, you know, who is climate change going to affect? The people, like young people. So like when we throw out these words like boomers, like, you know, it's not going to really affect boomers like that in the future when as much as it's going to affect us.
Okay. post-millennial. Yeah, I mean, I totally get that. And other things. What are some other kind of issues of importance, like right now in this kind of day and age, that are kind of motivating you guys?
Well, for me, I'd say just students' rights in general.
Uh-huh.
Or I remember one of the organizations that we're very close with, citywide. I know that earlier on they were working to make the voting access in Connecticut to 16, right? Yeah, so I guess that's one thing I could stand on for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, there are issues around poverty and racism and a whole kind of line of stuff that are certainly things that are, I know, motivating a lot of people I talk to. But you bring up a Citywide Youth Coalition. I know that some people are members of both. Do you see like the mission or the mandate? How do the two groups work together? Citywide Youth Coalition, for those who don't know, is another student activist group that works rather closely with you guys. You spend a lot. How do you kind of distinguish between the two organizations and what their missions are? Okay.
Yeah, so we recognize, many groups throughout the state of Connecticut that are doing this work to support young people in terms of advocacy. And Citywide is one, but I'd also like to shout out Hearing Youth Voices, who we worked with. And actually, they worked very closely with SEJ in support of this, what was
1912.
What was public House Bill 7082 and now Public Act 1912. And so we, although we are separate organizations, what we've done really well, I think, in coalition building is identifying the areas in which there's overlap in terms of our vision and our mission. And then where we determine that we find those areas of overlap, we've done really well, and just like working together to support each other in this work and ultimately supporting the young people in the state. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I understand that Benny's on the line. Benny, are you there?
Yep. Hi.
Hi. Benny's an old member. I think you're probably still considered a member by these guys.
Absolutely is.
Yes. Could you say a little about you're at Boston College now?
Yes, I am.
Fantastic. Congratulations. And we've been talking a little about the history of the group. How long have you been involved with SEJ and maybe its earlier kind of forms?
Yeah, I joined SEJ, I think, towards the end of my sophomore year. I was just like going to member meetings, but it wasn't really like too much of a commitment. And then I got really into it like the middle of my junior year. And yeah, I've been there ever since.
And what sort of changes have you seen in the organization over, I guess it's been like 4 years, nearly?
Yeah. Oh, man. I think I've seen everything from name changes. We've gotten new members. We've gotten just better training and build better connections with each other. We've moved offices. Like, I've seen it all.
You've seen all the iterations of the organization from, we still are, in our infancy, and obviously there's a ton more room to grow and develop. But Benny obviously predates me. I just joined the organization as executive director this year, 2020. But Benny she's like an OG of SEJ.
Yeah. So maybe you can tell me a little about the way that the organization is structured, and especially like how members go about determining like what's going to be on the agenda and all. Like how's like leadership kind of like who takes charge of?
I think like the question is like what it means to be youth led and like your experience in that way with SEJ.
Yeah. Well, just building off of my own experience. So I joined when I Hillary and a former lead organizer of ours came into my classroom, and they were talking about the program, and it just hit me, and it impacted me, and I wanted to join. So that's how I joined, and that's how a lot of members join. They either it's through members talking to them, or it's because Hillary or someone else like went into a classroom and just talked about the program. And then once you're like there for a while, we kind of did this like informally, but we just like were able to like cultivate such good relationships with each other that before the summer before my senior year, when Hillary and our deputy director Brianna, they were trying to figure out a way to make the organization more youth led, and they were like, the best way to do that is to hire them and have them really like literally build the organization. And so I came on as a program coordinator, just like coordinating like the programs, making sure that we have meals at the our weekly Thursday meetings, making sure that like events were like planned. I planned a lot of the parties that we held, including our cultural celebration at the end of that summer that year. And so that's just like how we've like gotten members to like get into leadership positions. It's changed a little bit since I started, and it's definitely more formalized now, and there's more of a direct like leadership pipeline, and there's more structure, but it's still through that cultivation of relationships and making sure that like we're getting members to fulfill these like positions so that they build characteristics of like responsibility and just being able to control something and lead something in a way.
Yeah, sure. And I think it's it's kind of exciting to see this like youth led sense of leadership. And it's not just SEJ; it's a lot of groups these days. And I think it's really promising, and to hand leadership to the people who are affected the most by all these things. Could you, maybe Saeed, could you say a little about that as well? You're an intern right now.
Yeah, I am.
And so what makes an intern special? What does that mean?
I think okay, so like before going on like becoming an actual like leadership position,
Mm-hmm.
I mean I guess for the the leadership pipeline, it plays into like before actually becoming the a leadership position, and then from a member. So I would say I mean, Stephanie could also talk about this a little bit because she was a former intern as well. So she finished her whole thing as well. But I would just say interns is kind of just learning and learning the responsibilities before becoming like a main leadership.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, to put it simply short, in order to become a leadership member, you need to become an intern first. I don't think this existed when Benny became a leadership member, but around the time when I started to join, and they were gathering up to make the next leadership members, they started or created this. So
is this kind of a way so that people who are just coming into the group can kind of get a sense of how things flow and also decide how much energy they want to put into it before they kind of step up and
I mean I think so. I suppose so.
That does seem.
And maybe the summer intensive as part of the pipeline to becoming an intern with it.
So you have an intensive program during the summer that is leadership training, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, basically on how to become an organizer or what to do as an organizer. Zaid was there because that was around the time when he just found out about SEJ.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you ever want to become an intern in the future, you would go to it. And for us, it was about a week, right? It was a week.
It was 3 days, I think, 3 or 4 days.
3 or 4 days.
I'm going to turn over to you quickly and just ask, when is the next leadership meeting going to be happening this summer? Do you know yet?
No, so we don't know the exact dates, and we are actually talking with some of our partners in the coalition that I described because several organizations sort of have a similar model where members just sort of develop through this leadership pipeline, and the summer is obviously the best time to have the opportunity to offer the trainings because our members aren't in school at that time, and so we talked about perhaps. Working together with some of our partners and developing just a broader summer intensive in which all of our respective members can participate. So we don't have the dates yet, but happy to share.
That's right. I'm going to change the topic around a little and ask Saeed to say a little about our trip to the Schomburg Center a couple weekends ago to this Teen Black Lives Matter conference. Tell us what that was all about.
So like the Black Lives Matter Teen Conference, it was basically a conference with like a lot of young people were there and organizations were there and organizers were there, and there were a lot of different workshops that people can attend. So like basically throughout the day we attended some like various workshops that we registered for, and they were about different topics. Like I know one of my workshops was about like bystanders and bystander effects, and then another one was about like voting, and yeah, like voting disillusionment and stuff as well. So I don't know, it was very interesting, and like I would say like I really liked a lot of the conferences. The only thing that like I didn't like was how like I know that there was a lot of very, very young people that attended, so they kind of like filtered the workshops so that like instead of doing like they even like switched it up in the middle of it. Like they're like, oh, there's young people here, we can't do this or that. So like they made it like super like young focused, or like there was like little kid focused.
Yeah, I think the ages were from 13 to 18.
Yeah.
And
there were like 8-year-olds there.
Oh, there were 8-year-olds there?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I can see that being a problem. Afterwards, they had a open mic, which
I love the open mic. That was very interesting.
Yeah, I was really impressed.
Yeah, there were like even some of our members like Anthony, and Deontay also went up. And
was this the one in New York?
Yeah, it was at the Schomburg Center.
Okay.
Yeah, so Anthony, Deontay, they both went up there, and they performed, like Anthony performed like a poem, and Deontay performed like a rap thing, and like I just loved the vibe, I would say.
Yeah, I don't think either of them before the open mic had even been thinking about doing it. They just kind of like
just went up. Yeah.
In fact, they were more like, "Oh, let's don't do that." But
I don't think they even knew that there would be an open mic.
Well, I know that Anthony went last year.
Okay.
Yeah, Anthony went. This is the second time the group has gone there, and Stephanie. Well, you can talk to everyone else. I'd really encourage you to go next year. It was a blast. Saeed, so it's a hard question now. Which was better, like the lunch at the Jamaican place or the dinner at the Soul Food
The lunch
place?
at the Jamaican place.
Okay,
really
all right, that's good to hear.
It was really good.
Yeah, no, the food was really excellent.
First time trying Jamaican food.
Oh, glad you liked it.
Can I ask a question? So first of all, I want to say thank you for inviting us to attend, and for making that possible. I was just wondering what your connection is with the Schomburg Center.
Well, I know some of the people at the Schomburg Center for quite a while, just because of workshops for teachers. There's a Lapidus Center, which is part of the Schomburg, which again their focus is on the kind of history of slavery and abolitionist movement. So they're connected a lot with what we do. But even before then, before my current job, I worked at Teachers College in New York City, and we had a very good relationship with the Schomburg even back then. So it's really exciting that they're doing this thing with young people, and even more so just to see, you'll have to come sometime, but just to see like from all over New York, New York City, all these different groups. And you guys need to represent New Haven harder. People were like being apologetic, like, you know, you'd hear someone from the Bronx or someone from Harlem or something like, I'm from New Haven. It's like, you got to be proud of New Haven, right? Don't let the New Yorkers like push you around. But yeah, I think it's a really fantastic group, and again, it's so exciting to see so many young people doing it. Could one of you say a little about the work that you're doing with Yale students in kind of preparing for Public Act 1912, the curriculum change? And I'm talking about?
I mean,
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
you want to go?
Sure. So, I think again it was back in like October, September. So we met with a group of college students. So it was Yale researchers, who were advised by a college professor at Yale named Dan Hosang. And what we were attending to do is research specific places or specific states where a specific act or a specific public act, like the one that we're trying to publish, happened, and how it worked and what didn't work, and use that research and info data to see how we could put it into ours.
Oh, that's great. And so this was a kind of one-time meeting, or are you trying to keep in touch and do follow-up meetings?
Well, it was supposed to be constant and follow time, but I think I only met them like 3 times, and then after the third, I feel they did the rest of the work.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the first initial meeting was like a group thing where like everyone just went to it, and then in that meeting, like we split up into groups of like where we wanted to research. So I was in the group where we researched California, and so like although we didn't have like those initial meetings again, our like separate little groups like met up, and some of them weren't very consistent, whereas like other little groups were like met very like weekly or like every like couple of weeks.
You want a question? Oh, I was gonna ask more about what you think, like Yale University, you know, both the university but also graduate students and undergraduates, what they can do to kind of help with like the movement for kind of the educational reforms that you're envisioning, and not only them but also like Southern and the other, you know, colleges and universities around New Haven.
Well, even though that they're college students, they're still the youth. They're just a little more of
Totally.
the ripe kind of youth. But as a fellow youth, I only ask them to do one thing and one thing only, is to speak your voice and speak your truth, and to get our voice heard. Make sure that not make sure, but I'd like it if you were able to speak what we're going on about, and startled me. Just speak on and going what we're going on about, and yeah, I lost my track.
Yeah, that's all right. Saeed, anything else? What kind of like resources or coalitions or that sort of thing that you can form with like colleges and universities in the area?
Like that's the main thing that I was gonna say. Like with Yale is so close to us, and like all these other different colleges, like they have like resources, and that's really the main thing. Like, you know, us as like a separate, you know, SEJ, we're not gonna have access to those like amazing resources that like Yale students or even like Yale professors, Yale professors will have. So like making these like coalitions, like you said, and these connections and networking with all these different people is gonna help the actual like movement of social justice, educational justice.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that everyone needs to be involved in this, from you know, teachers at like the elementary school level to people like Dan Hosang, who's a professor at Yale with the Center for the Study of Race, Indigeneity, and Transnational Migration, and others, just to make this. It's just going to take everyone who's involved in the system of education to make this happen.
Of course.
Say a couple things about that. first of all, there's so much to say about it. I just want to acknowledge that, like, before I came on to SEJ, that's when this advocacy work began. But I know that, like, the intent was something much bigger than where we landed. So it was required curriculum in middle through high school, as opposed to where we landed, which is just an elective. It was requested it be the history of race and racism, which obviously includes the history of Black and Latinx studies. And so we recognized this win. But I was at the Capitol, and a few of our members, Deontay, Marquise, Chinadum is our operations director. We were all at the Capitol last week for a Black History Month celebration, during which we celebrated Public Act 1912, and it was fabulous. It was a great experience, and we had a good time at the Capitol. But during that time, Representative Gibson and Senator McCrory both acknowledged that there is so much more work to do, that we can't just stop here. We want this curriculum in middle schools. And, Senator McCrory said, like, I'm thinking about the AP class, like, let's keep this thing going. And so I say that to, just acknowledge that, although we landed here and we are happy that, this is just one step in a larger journey towards where we want to go. And then I also want to say I wasn't able to attend the event at the Schomburg because I was at Holyoke High School in Massachusetts, and they are a school that has begun to develop this curriculum. And so what Saeed and Stephanie are talking about is actually, like, really real. Like, we are looking at other states and other models. We're looking at specific schools to see how they have, developed this curriculum, looking at the content, making sure that the content is about liberation, that it's not just like the history of, like, slavery, that, that it tells, like, a complete and more accurate story than what our students are currently getting in their history and social studies courses. And so, I look forward to our members, like, continuing to, like, research and connect with other schools and other organizations that are doing this work and doing it well.
Yeah. I mean, that's all very true. And I think, in addition to kind of thinking about how to make this a more inclusive curriculum that affects every middle schoolers and high schoolers, and isn't just focused on like slavery,
right?
That all this is important. And I think as well, and I know this, I mean, we have this problem here locally, is kind of pushing for, like, anti-racism training,
Yes.
for like especially
Teachers?
staff members, as well as, in addition to that, having a teacher workforce that looks more like the students who they're teaching.
Yeah.
Oh, Benny, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm still here. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm so quiet.
No, that's all right. You're
Yes,
not in
please
the
feel
room,
free
so
to
we
jump
yes. So could you say a little about some of these other issues?
She
Yeah,
was obviously there
I was
during
just gonna
the
say, sorry.
No, I was just acknowledging that you were present,
hear
very
you.
present during the work when SEJ was looking to pass the bill.
Yeah, like, the passing of this bill has so many components that are needed in order for it to be successful, and we tried to get that point across so many times when we were helping or campaigning for the bill. And one of our amendments that we had proposed to the bill was to make sure that teachers were getting anti-racism training that so that they would understand what they were teaching and the community that they were teaching it in, so that the students weren't, getting fed wrong information or being misled or being re-traumatized, by just incompetent teachers. And the reality is that not just in Connecticut, but all over the country, we have so many teachers who just do not have the skills to teach a course like this effectively. And so, yeah, I mean, teachers, getting the right teachers is so important.
Right. I mean, this has already, of course, been talked about. Is that it's mandated that it be offered as an elective course in all the public high schools in Connecticut. But the question of who's going to teach that course is like, and what kind of professional development training they're going to get. Are they the right person for it? These are going to be really hard questions to kind of deal with. And it's good to see that that in the case of here in New Haven especially, is that we're not simply leaving that in the hands of the folks who are in charge of implementing this on the Connecticut level. That I think that you folks in SEJ, but then a lot of other people are, parents and other people in the community are really keen on making sure that this is more than just a kind of this somewhat empty gesture of just like, well, here's a course. It's just an elective though, so you don't have to take it. And we're going to give it to you. You take it your senior year if you like, and then you're gone. Like that's all you need.
Yeah.
It is. I will say, I don't want to diminish the fact that this is a real step forward, and I think this is the first time that the state has mandated a class. And sometimes they made recommendations, but this is a big step.
I don't feel like it is though.
I'll say more.
Well, if I'm being honest, this bill, now this public act, it gave me a dream, gave me a hope. Because of this public act, I want to become a teacher. It gave me the desire to teach other kids this, to teach middle schoolers that it's more than just slavery. Racism still exists. What racism actually is. And it just frustrated me to so much when we didn't get that. We got it as high school students only, not required, no teacher training, and not even racism is African American and Puerto Rican Latinx studies.
Right.
So there's a lot of work to do. And with how things are going, if I'm being honest, there is going to be no progress. We got to try harder. We got to make more of a change.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think that you're absolutely right. It's encouraging, though, that people like you are considering going into teaching and education, and that you're not waiting until you have your degree in hand, is that you're doing it right now. I mean, both of you and Benny as well. I mean, I'm so much impressed with all of this work that you're doing. Let me see. Oh, before we forget, someone's asked a question. Jeff Klaus, do you know how many POC graduates from 12th grade are graduating with 12th grade skills?
People of color.
People of color, yeah. I don't know that we're really the group to kind of
give statistics like that.
Yeah, I don't know that we know the statistics. I mean,
but I'm assuming it's not that high.
It also depends on the school district, right? So some districts, statistics have shown, do a better job at educating their students than other districts. Some districts have disproportionately more resources to do so than other districts. Connecticut has the highest achievement gap in the country, also the highest wealth gap in the country. And all of those things are, affect access to quality education. That's sadly real in our state.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's very true. Like even in high schools that are supposedly integrated, you can go into an AP class and see hardly a student of color in the classroom. So there's ways in which even in the building itself, segregation is in effect. That's one thing, Benny, that I remember you doing a lot of kicking about back when you were in high school out here. Could you say a little about your experiences?
Experiences in what?
Oh, we're talking about the kind of absence of students of color in AP classes, and I seem to recall that. I mean, you pushed a lot for that, just getting through school.
Yeah, I mean, I always say like I'm an exception because I to the school.
I'm sorry, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Well, sorry, I'm in an elevator, so it's probably.
I think if you're on speaker, you have to take it off.
Yeah, I think you should take it off speaker and speak directly into your phone.
Oh, I'm not on speaker. I'm using my headset. I was just in the elevator.
Oh, okay. We'll get back to you then.
No, I'm out now.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
I was just gonna say, like I usually always say I'm an exception because I went to school that was very diverse and inclusive about that. I never really experienced that, but it is very true, and it's even more apparent here where I am, like at college, and I'm hearing other students of color just speaking about how the lack of students of color in AP classrooms. I mean, they would just be the only ones, and it just shows like how a lot of schools don't have or don't put much care into making sure that their students of color have the access or the courage to take courses that might be a little bit more difficult. They just assume that they don't want it or they won't succeed in it, and it really sucks.
Right. This is where, again, like having some anti-racism training is really important when you put lower expectations on one group of students as opposed to another. I mean, that is like, racist thinking kind of, in its clearest form. Do either of you have any? I mean, is that your experience as well? Is that there's kind of segregation that's instituted in the classroom? That I know at Metropolitan Business Academy, I think they're doing a lot to kind of break that cycle.
Yeah. I can't really say much because I say my school is one of the lucky ones in that sense. But Saeed, you have anything?
I mean, like my school doesn't even have a big like white population in it.
Right.
Like there's like from what I recollect, there's like 3 white kids that I can even think of. So like for there to be like segregation in the higher classes, I mean like you wouldn't really see it like that because there's
it's
not
already
even,
segregated.
Like
yeah. So I mean that's kind of goes to that. Could I before we leave, before we're done, ask if people who are interested in learning more about the organization, or they have a student or are a student and want to connect with you guys, what's the best way to do that?
I don't think there's the best way, but there's multiple ways.
Okay.
We have Twitter, social media, Instagram. We have our own personal website. If you have anyone from SCJ, a member, leadership team, if you were to just contact them and ask for info, they would definitely give it. Or just even go to our weekly meetings on Thursdays, which are open to the youth. You don't have to be a high school student. You could be a graduate, or you could be a dropout. It doesn't matter. But yeah.
How do you kind of, I mean, that's an interesting question, though. How do you, what's the cutoff date for being a youth? Is it like 22 or?
It's when they decide, like, when do you not want to be involved with SCJ anymore?
Okay. And of course, you can also go to the website if you aren't a youth, but you want to donate. There's like a whole set of categories for doing that you can do online, right? They have an annual like dinner and everything like that to kind of get people in the community involved more. I know I've gone; they're fun, and there are other ways that you can get in touch with them. Do you have anything else to add as far as support?
Yeah, I feel free. So for young people, we have members at like all schools throughout New Haven public schools, and so if someone in your school as a member, certainly reach out to them. And I come with them to one of our member meetings, as Stephanie said. If you are an older person and you'd like to support the organization in any way, be it financially, offer space, offer your resources, we are, one of our, a part of what we do is like we're really interested in leadership development. And so if you have a particular set of skills that you'd like to offer and come out to one of our meetings and like do a training, we take donations of all kinds, not just monetary. And we'd love to have folks from the community come out and like interact with our young people, help and support them and lift them up. But yes, of course, you can donate financially on our website, Students for Educational Justice, and reach out to me. My name is Rashonda McCullum. Chinadum, you can reach out to Chen, any of our members.
Could I say something?
Absolutely.
So our website is students for, as in the number 4, ed, as in ed, justice. Same thing with our Instagram, students for ed justice, and yeah. And Twitter, I don't really know, to be honest. But
if you search for Students for Educational Justice, you'll find it because I found it.
And thank you, because it is the number 4.
Yeah.
Right. I think one thing before we close that I'm interested in is that you really have a real focus on education, but especially history education. And I know a lot of people out there would say, "Oh, they should be doing STEM." That you need to get math and science and business skills and all that sort of thing, so you can kind of be financially successful and all this sort of stuff. You are shaking your head, Stephanie. So tell us why that is the wrong way of thinking.
Let me just put it simple, because I'm not good at long explanations. If you want us to be financially prepared, how about you teach us how to do our taxes? Okay. Instead of teaching us how to do a business. That's it. That's all I need to say.
All right.
Unlike the whole why don't you guys do STEM and stuff, it's really like who is in SEJ and what are their interests, right? It's not like where these the leadership team is forcing another mission onto SEJ. Rather, we ask the members, what are they interested in? And if we're not interested, if the members and everyone in SEJ aren't interested in STEM related stuff and they're more interested in history related stuff, then that's what our work is going to be around.
That's what it means to be youth-led, is that the adults in the room are not leading the work. We are literally following the lead of the young people who are telling us what the issues are, what they're seeing in their schools, what they're finding in their communities, and those are the issues then that we decide that we're going to work on collectively.
Yeah, I even my own work with the group, I feel like I'm more of a facilitator. If you want to, have someone come and talk about history, well, I'm not going to say, oh, here's this one or that one. I want, to respond to what you are interested in. Benny, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was going to say the best way for us to undo the harm of this country's history is by teaching these students what's happened, what's still going on, and I don't really think you can get that in science or math.
Right, and as a historian, I'm 100% behind that. Is study of history is the way to find out about where we are right now and what needs to change. And again, I'm super impressed with the group, with Rashonda, with Benny, who it's been a while since I've seen you, Benny, but again,
I'll be back in a few weeks.
Oh, fantastic! I hope we can talk. And Saeed and Stephanie, thanks so much for being here, and I think we'll sign off.
Thank you for hosting this.
Oh, sure.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice having you dial in.
All right, bye guys.
Yeah, bye.
giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, feeling positions.
that's true.
Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version.
I'm never gonna give up.
Is it 10? Is it a dozen?
Cause this is my road. Let's camera action, I'm ready to
So
go.
they have no
I'm
words
never
yet.
gonna give up. Fall
It is.
down, I
It's
just gotta
that.
get up.
I go visit my
This
mother
is
in
my
my
road.
sister
Let's
lives
camera
there.
action, I'm
And
ready
if
to
you don't have a
go.
pass, like, you're